I've been painting portraits for 6 years, and for most of that time I was following advice that I genuinely believe was correct. Good advice from artists I respect, and painted worse because of it at times. This video is about 5 things I had to unlearn, not tips, things I actually had to take apart and rebuild. If you've been painting portraits for a while and you feel like you're working harder than the painting deserves, I would say at least one of these is probably why. A couple of quick things before I start. If you've seen my video in testing 3 blues on the same portrait, some of this will feel familiar. This is the follow-up to that. And second, this is not beginner advice. If you're just starting with watercolor portraits, some of this might be confusing more than helpful. This is for people who already know the basics and are wondering why the basics aren't giving them what they want. Today I want to share with you 5 portrait advice that I had to kind of unlearn to learn for the past 6 years. So the first advice I want to share with you is paint the shapes, not the details. I know, like a lot of you probably already know this and you'll be like, yeah, like of course, but like I basically forgotten about that advice for a long time, and it was definitely something that I relearned again, because at the Portrait Society conference, this was one of the things that repeatedly was said across different artists, so it must be true, right? And I do think that that is the case. Now, I did a video around painting with different blues. If you haven't watched that, you should go check it out. I'll leave the link down below. But when the shapes are more evident, like this one is kind of like all around, right? At the neck. And this one you can see clear shapes. And when you're painting shapes, I think everything seems to come together. And when you're thinking in the early stage like this one, I was actually thinking about the eyes, the nose, the mouth, and it didn't turn as what I wanted, whereas this one I was more thinking shapes. So I think it overall turned out to be a better painter than the rest. So the next advice is start with chaos. I think as a beginner, when I started, it was all about actually painting with control. Like the first step that I think a lot of beginners have to do and should be doing is how to almost be able to manipulate the watercolor with understanding the control of watercolor. More pigment means more control, whereas more water means less control. And to understanding that balance is like the start of watercolor as a beginner, I think. And I have a whole lot of like Skillshare classes where I dive deep into this. This comes with the characteristics of what you are like. And I think part of art is like understanding yourself as much as it is like understanding about your art. Because art is what we create out of us, right? So I think it shows a lot about us. It's called visual arts, right? Because you're communicating what you see into something visual. For me, I think I am a person that loves a lack of control. I had a show called A Maternal Gaze, and within that show I shared a space with another artist, and my part of the show was called I Was Once Too a Child, where I got a grant from For Culture and I painted people in recovery. The way that I tried to release, like let go of the control, was actually on my canvas. Each participant that I talked to and was my subject matter, they were handed a paintbrush to leave a mark on the canvas. And that was my way of letting go and letting them be in the spotlight to basically lay out where I was going with the portrait for each of these portraits. So that was the start. So you could see in the paintings that there's like a line, but with that I had to think about the best composition, which side I was going to put that mark onto, and so forth. So in fairness, I did dilute that paint. You have to kind of look at yourself, and then what kind of person are you? Do you like the lack of control, or do you like having control? And maybe that's the way to start off a painting. So as for me, I understand that I like the lack of control and the intuitiveness of things. So then starting with chaos was something that I learned about myself after 6 years. It took time. And when I go in a painting with very tight details, it really tires me, and I don't think that's necessarily the best paintings that I have done in the past. I think this really depends on the type of paper that you use as well, but at least for me, I've realized that because I'm using hot press paper and it's very unforgiving, botanical artists typically use hot press. And the good part about hot press, for me at least, is one, it's easy to sketch with pencils with graphite because it's not bumpy, that I can create very crisp straight lines. The second bit is that with chaos of how I disperse the water and the paint, it can create very interesting textures without me having to control any of it. And I like the intuitiveness of that. So what I typically do is I work flat first and go very loose, very chaotic, and then let the paper and the pigment and the water do its job. So I work flat first. And then, only then do I, for the best paintings, I usually work vertically and then start painting. And I'm talking about big paintings, okay? Because of the nature of water, I like how the vertical drips happen. And with oil painting, you could do it if you use lots of turpentine. It's just not the same. If you're using watercolor, like, let the blooms come out, let the paints like drip. That's the whole fun of it. So I particularly like working flat and then raising them vertical. But I think this really depends on what you like about the medium. I never stopped to think, why watercolor? You know, I never stopped myself at the beginning stages, like, why watercolor? What do I like about watercolor? And I think you have to narrow it down to that and go to the specifics of why watercolor means so much to you, or gouache means a lot to you. And then I think from there you have to reverse it into the different direction to then work in a specific way to accentuate those characteristics, if that makes sense. The advice number 4 is shadow reads the room. I typically thought shadows consist of blue. The shadow should be cool, but that's not necessarily the point, I think. It really depends on like what the background color is. Like, say I'm in the house and look at me. Look at this light from this orange light hitting me, and this, relative to that, this is a cool light hitting me, right? And look at this shadow, it's like violet, but that's all related to the light of the room. So I often find that when there's like a warm light source coming, hitting, the shadows could have this hint of like orange in them. So it really depends on the temperature of the light source. And what I've noticed that I try to narrow down is that yes, the shadows will most likely be some kind of neutral color. That's no doubt. It's going to be neutral. But I think in terms of like, is it swaying to the neutral blue, or is it swaying to the neutral violet, or is it swaying to the neutral orange? And that's how I shift in order to understand the neutral slight tint that I'm going for, if that makes sense. So understanding that all shadows are not just neutral or black for that matter is an advice that I think is a good one to keep moving forward when you're painting. The last one is probably the hardest, not technically, but conceptually. This one is a bit of a tricky one. I personally am drawn to paintings that typically have an unfinished feel, and the places that I want the eyes to go tend to have more of the hard edges. So here, the eyes obviously have hard edges. The back of the hair near the ear has hard edges, her chin, her jawline. So these are the certain areas that I want people to look. But the rest, like the hair, could be very loose. And that's because I want the eyes to go towards the place that I want like people to look at. So that's how I paint. And I know that's basically one of the rules of composition, right? You go for the hard, crispy lines towards the areas that you want the area of interest to be. and the others should be loose. So I'm using line, shapes, colors, values to create that contrast, because contrast is where our eyes go. But then somebody might question, well, how about people who have no area of interest? Like, let's look at Jackson Pollock's work. It's like spread across everywhere, right? What's interesting is I went to the Portrait Society conference. There's 2 videos about that, which is interesting. You might want to look. And basically from that, I learned this artist called Kwang Ho. And then that led me to this podcast called Draped Artist. I'll leave the podcast below, but Kwang Ho talks about the 8 visual approaches. And man, if you get into it, it's really interesting. Like, that's the only thing I'm always looking out when I look at paintings. And I've noticed that I like low tone paintings. Like, that's the first visual approach that my work consists of. But anyways, so here, when I talk about Jackson Pollock, I'm talking about equalization. That's what the visual 8 approaches like category is for Jackson Pollock's work. So there's no area of interest. So that's what he's going at, right? That's what his art is all about. What is my point? I don't know. Maybe my point is, like, I had to keep on going. I had to create so much paintings. Like, I don't know how many paintings I've done, but 250 per year, roughly. And then it became less and less. But I would say that you just have to create so much paintings to realize what you gravitate towards. And once you know what you're drawn into and what your work is selecting out of this 8 visual approaches, I would then make that a criteria to then ask, is it serving those key elements of the visual approaches, and probably go with that. I guess knowing yourself, it comes down to really knowing yourself.